You can't come with us. We're on a quest.
Can't I? Ask her.
Never! I, Schmendrick the Magician, forbid it! And be wary of rousing a wizard's wrath! Rousing a wizard's... Be wary of making a magician angry!
Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome back to the Real Hero Talk podcast. I am your host, Judge Greg. Joining me today in the hallowed halls of Hero Talk, I have host of the Behind the Line radio podcast, Kynetyk, also known as Nick, and making a triumphant return to Hero Talk, I have 60. Welcome back to Hero Talk.
Hey.
Hello.
All right, so today's film was a suggestion from Nick, and it's The Last Unicorn, the 1982 fantasy animated Rankin and Bass film. Nick, was this payback for RoboCop? Are you getting back at me because I made you watch RoboCop? Because I thought RoboCop was going to be a good movie at the time.
Yes, that would be a part of the motivation.
Yeah, holy cow. So
just think, I still owe you for Ultraviolet too.
Oh, good. Well, you know what? Ultraviolet wasn't as bad as maybe we made it sound like. There were good parts to it.
I still owe you.
Yeah, all right. I'm just trying to think what the good parts were. Besides William Fichtner. Other than that, I'm sure they were there. I can't remember. I don't know. I like Mila Jovovich. She's talented. I mean, I didn't see any of that talent in that particular film, but she's talented in general. I've seen her in some of her other stuff. All right. So, The Last Unicorn. Now, when this was suggested, I think I had remotely heard of this thing, but I just thought, I don't think I have ever seen this movie in my entire life. And nothing seemed familiar. I watched the entire movie thinking, what is this music? What is up with the butterfly? And it wasn't until I got to about 3/4 of the way through the movie when Molly Grew was telling Prince Lear how to cut a potato that it occurred to me that not only have I seen this movie, but that instance where Molly Grew was telling the prince, how to cut and cut away from your hand, not towards it. Every time I have handled a knife in my entire life, that little moment has played out in my head in terms of, wait, how am I cutting? Am I cutting towards my hand or away from it? So, I guess in that way, I owe this movie, a debt of gratitude for not slicing up my hand at some point in my life, I suppose. But that was literally from whenever I watched it the first time, and I couldn't tell you when. That was my only takeaway from this movie, is proper safety when cutting potatoes.
A strange aspect of that, to kind of jump around a bit with the topic, one of the themes in the story is memory. There's, what's her name? The Mommy Fortuna. She wants immortality by making the immortal harpy remember her. There's Amalthea, who starts to forget who she is. There's Haggard, who is fixated on his memory of seeing a unicorn. So that's this movie stuck in your memory, and there's its immortality for you. So
Nick, 60, do you guys actually like this movie, or was this really just about my punishment?
I love this movie.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Why?
Well, it's like one of my earliest memories from childhood was watching this movie. And I think it was like the first movie that I ever watched that captured my imagination when I was a kid. So even watching it as an adult, I tend to forgive all of its flaws because, I loved it so much when I was a kid, and I still love it.
Yeah, that I can see. In terms of when I think Rankin and Bass, I of course always think of their Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series. And I think this came after all of those. If I'm remembering correctly, I think they did those earlier, and this is kind of later. The animation style is definitely there, but I don't remember. Did this thing really get I'm seeing the box office was 6.5 million, which is not bad for a for a small niche animated film. But was this obviously I had seen it once, because knife safety is important to me. But is this like a cult classic? Does this get a lot of air and playtime? I just happened to catch it on Netflix, but has this movie been around, and is there some? I guess what I'm asking is there some sort of weird Firefly-like cult following of this that I'm going to inadvertently anger during the course of Hero Talk?
I'm not sure that the term cult classic, as you would think of it, would apply. Another word that comes to my mind would be underground, but because it does have people who, because it's based on an original book, and there's people who just are diehard, enjoy the book. And in fact, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but apparently, like Jeff Bridges, his voice acting, he enjoyed the story so much he offered to do it for free.
Oh, really?
Christopher Lee loved the book so much. Like, he got the part, read the book, loved it so much. He came in. The band that did it loves it. Who did the soundtrack? Hell, one of the guys from Game Grumps and Starbomb loves this movie too. So there's people out there who just are diehard supporters of this.
Yeah. So, fun fact about Christopher Lee, he also voiced Haggard in the German dub of this movie.
Yep.
There you go.
And he apparently, when the author of the book called him to wish him a happy 90th birthday, he said something to the extent of, if by the time you get around to making a live-action adaptation, if I've passed away, don't worry about it. I've risen from the dead before. I know how it's done.
All right, so let's roll into the cast. I guess Nick, I didn't ask you. Do you like this film, Nick?
Yes, with some caveats.
So yes, asterisk is what we'll call that.
Yeah. If you had to put me down on a yes/no, I would say yes.
Okay.
But I recognize, as 60 said, there's definitely flaws in it. If you're going to take on a couple things here, I would say it's always worth listening to Christopher Lee's voice. That part's awesome.
Well, yeah.
It's a novelty to see a very young Jeff Bridges, or here in this case.
He didn't even sound like Jeff Bridges.
No. When I saw this movie the first time, I was struggling to figure out which character he was supposed to be.
I looked it up because at some point, when they finally got to Haggard's Castle, and I remember thinking, like, I think I'm out of characters. One of these people has been Jeff Bridges. So I went and looked it up because I didn't. You don't. Prince Lear does not sound like a young the dude, you know?
No. He doesn't even sound like a young Flynn from Tron. I mean,
he does not.
But on top of that, of course, there's the animation, which is pretty good. It has a bit of the Rankin Bass, like people are talking, so they have to be moving, and
yes.
Particularly the unicorn. But when she's not talking out loud, she's thinking, so there has to be motion. So she's doing these weird, the motion doesn't quite make sense. It really doesn't look like anything a horse would do, but it's still.
I liked that. I liked that, at least for the unicorn, because it makes the unicorn look like strange.
Like it's not a horse.
Yeah, it's not a horse. It's this strange magical creature, and it moves and behaves strangely. So I kind of liked that. Yeah,
I actually sort of like that on the unicorn too. I definitely saw things that were right in the wheelhouse of what movies were around then. And I mean, in terms of a fantastical tale, this is certainly that. And there is, not to constantly be bringing up Tolkien, but oftentimes whenever we have a story that involves fantasy, people just like to sort of just plant themselves in J.R.R. Tolkien's backyard and have a little camp out there. So I do have a certain appreciation for fantasy that is not constantly the exact same thing over and over and over again. And to give this movie credit, and the book credit, this is not the same fantasy over and over again. This has its own lore, its own way of doing things, its own fantastic beasts that they've taken from various mythologies and put in here. And for the sake that it was something new, I appreciate that, and I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy the butterfly, and I think I need to mention that as many times as possible. The butterfly...
I don't think anyone enjoyed the butterfly.
The butterfly breaks immersion. The butterfly made too many current pop culture references for 1982.
Yeah.
To the extent that now I have to question, when does this movie take place? Is this some sort of post-apocalyptic thing where the butterfly's been around and, like, heard some of the old radio waves from the before time? Like, that's, and I maybe thought too hard about the butterfly.
Well, where is this anyway? Apparently just off the coast there's narwhals.
There's narwhals. There's somehow they got a chimp, they got a lion. There's just Asian dragons just in the forests, I guess. Where I don't know where they are.
Yeah, okay, again, I'm thinking way too hard about it, but I just didn't like the butterfly. But as long as we're talking about the butterfly was voiced by Robert Klein, who's, he's been in a ton of movies. I don't know if I really want to talk about too many. He was in Reign Over Me, which I mentioned simply because that movie introduced me to Shadow of the Colossus. Is that the name of the movie, the game, right? Shadow of the Colossus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to that game. Was one of the aspects of Adam Sandler's character in that movie is that he was constantly playing that game over and over and over again. Other than that, he was in Sharknado 2. And apparently he was in Sharknado 3. I have not seen any of the Sharknados, by the way.
Maybe someday we'll have to do some Asylum movie. If we were going to do an Asylum movie, I'd recommend, what was it? Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies.
Yes.
That was the playoff of the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, as long as we're talking about that movie, why not just go off on a tangent? It's what we do here. Do you know, out of all the movies that I have that I decided to redeem the Blu-ray code, that is the only one where the code actually expired? Out of all of them, because I only very recently, like 2 years ago was when I finally decided I should start redeeming some of these codes. So I went and grabbed codes out of my old Blu-rays and started redeeming them, and the only one where the code had expired was Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And it was only like past the date, the this might be expired by date, by like 6 months when that happened.
Huh.
It's like, wow, I pulled movies where I was 3 years after they might be expired by date, and it still worked.
Do you know what's funny? Like, that movie was terrible, but I read the book, and the book is actually pretty good.
I've heard the book is really good.
Like, and it's not something I ever would have picked up normally because I'm like, well, this looks stupid. But I remember it was a day that I was at school, and one of my classes got canceled, so there was this long period of time where I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't have a book with me, so I went to the bookstore, and among, like, Hunger Games and Twilight books, there was this one. I was like, well, seems like the lesser of the evils here.
Yeah.
So I picked it up and I read it. And the book is really good.
Well, maybe I'll give the book. I think I actually have that book now that I'm thinking about it. I might have actually bought it. I've actually read the Hunger Games. I'm not proud of that.
I did too.
I
liked the first one fine. And then it just got like really terrible as it went on.
I had a gross misconception of what that book series was going to be about. The concept when I read it was I thought it was going to be some combination of The Running Man and Battle Royale, and it turns out was really mostly about a love triangle, and the child death games were sort of in the background.
Yeah.
A little bit like the Pearl Harbor movie.
A little bit like the Pearl Harbor movie. Like, hey, Pearl Harbor's in this movie. All right, but anyway, so let's wrangle it on back to The Last Unicorn, and we'll just go in the IMDb order of cast here. So Schmendrick, who was I hate to call him a failed magician because he actually did some pretty decent music or magic in this, but he didn't really seem to have the best control over it. He really was just sort of I don't know. He wasn't a very
Conduit?
good yeah. Yeah, he's described in the synopsis as being an incompetent magician, and that just felt mean. I'm like, well, he's not incompetent. He recognized a unicorn right away. He was able to, make her escape. He turned her into a human to protect her from the Red Bull, and then was able to turn her back when he needed to. He conjured Robin Hood, so let's not call him incompetent, but he just. Yeah,
the way TV tropes would describe this is strong but unskilled.
Sure, we'll go with that. Anyway, so he's voiced by Alan Arkin, and we obviously cannot list everything Alan Arkin has been in because holy cow. But some of the big ones, my personal favorite role that he was in Argo, where he played Lester Siegel. He was one of the producers of the fake movie Argo, and I actually really liked him in that movie. I like that entire movie, so I liked him in that. He was the chief in Get Smart, which is didn't we see that together, Nick?
Yeah, we did. That was the one where we went in with really low expectations and were floored with how hysterical it was. And years later, you said you got it and watched it at home. And I had to ask you, was it really that funny, or was it just the perfect thing for both of us that day?
Yeah. It's not as funny, although some of the jokes they work only because you weren't expecting them to pull that joke from the series and put it in where it was. When you know they're coming, it's not as funny. But I will still say that Steve Carell is hilarious and he was really funny in that. And so Alan Arkin was the chief, also really good in that movie. Let's see, he was in Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, which I don't know.
A career-defining role, if ever there was one.
It was enough to be mentioned on Hero Talk, I'll tell you what.
Alan Arkin's one of those names that, from my end, like I recognize the name. I always recognize the name, and I just have for some reason he's someone who I have trouble recognizing and remembering.
Yeah, honestly, until Argo, I really would have trouble trying to put a face to the name. But after Argo, I can picture him directly. But then I'm trying to think, like, I want to say he was popular in some old TV show, but I keep looking to see, like, well, what show was that he would have been in that I would have really remembered him from at Nick at Night or something, and I can't find it. I mean, he's had bit parts in shows, but he's just one of those guys who's just in a ton of stuff, and he's a character actor.
Maybe you're getting him mixed up with Alan Alda and MASH.
You know, I think there was a point where I thought that was happening, but I could have sworn I knew Alan Arkin from something. But it is very difficult. Prior to Argo, if you had told me who Alan Arkin is, I would have described Alan Alda. I said, oh, it's the guy from MASH. Yeah, he's funny. Like, no, different guy. But so Alan Arkin played Schmendrick. I mean, voice is totally different. Another person I did not recognize from it until I had to check. I was actually looking to see, was Jeff Bridges Schmendrick? And no, that was Alan Arkin. Like, well, what do I know then?
That was the same reaction I had. I was like, hey, Jeff Bridges in this. Who is he? God damn it.
Yeah. He doesn't. Everyone sounds so young. Even Mia Farrow I didn't recognize, and she's got a very distinctive voice. If it wasn't for the fact that Mia Farrow was a huge name and the unicorn would have been the titular role, I would have never been able to put two and two together. I would not have heard that voice and say, oh, that's Mia Farrow. I would have said, who's playing this? But since I was able to meta the game a little bit in order to figure out Mia Farrow and who she was, but in a vacuum, not a chance.
And hell, I couldn't even recognize Angela Lansbury.
You know what? I didn't know Angela Lansbury was in this movie until, like, way towards the end, and I'm trying to think, have I just not seen her character yet? What's going on? And then so I check it, and Angela Lansbury's Mommy Fortuna. I'm like, I don't hear it. And I actually, at that point, I went back to the Mommy Fortuna scenes, because I said, I'm going to keep watching this until I hear it. And eventually I was able to pick it up. But, I mean, you have to understand, given my current cinematic exposure, Angela Lansbury and Mrs. Potts are sort of the same person in my head. And it's very hard to imagine her as anything else. I have heard her sing Beauty and the Beast over 200 times this calendar year. So yeah, we might as well jump to her. Angela Lansbury was Mommy Fortuna. Everybody knows what Angela Lansbury's from. She's from Beauty and the Beast and Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Bridges, we've mentioned him a couple of times. So he was the dude from The Big Lebowski. He was Kevin Flynn in Tron. And he also played Clue in Tron Legacy, which was not the masterpiece everyone thought it was going to be, but still wasn't a bad movie. It was entertaining.
Yeah, he was also Cogburn and True Grit and all kinds of stuff.
I normally don't like Western remakes, and I say that knowing full well that I liked 310 to Yuma, and so I will admit that it's not a hard, fast rule, but I liked his True Grit better than the original True Grit. And, and I don't say that lightly. I don't speak ill of the Duke, but this was better.
The Duke versus the Dude?
The Duke versus the Dude. Wow. Somebody call Superhero Beatdown. We'll see if we can get that.
Hell, there was already a Nostalgia Critic Old versus New for that one. I don't know if he billed it that way, but
no. That's how he should have. That's gold right there. If he didn't do it, then it's on him.
Yeah.
That's actually a good billing.
That's leaving money on the table.
We should do a hero talk on True Grit and specifically just call it Duke versus Dude.
I'm down.
Why not? I need to rewatch the old one again, but yeah, I like the new one. He was an Iron Man too. He helped kick off the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep. There was Obadiah Stane, the Ironmonger.
Yeah, which was and he had one of the most iconic parts of that movie when he yelled with a box of scraps.
Yep. In a cave with a box of scraps.
I, at least once a month, quote that to somebody in some context, somewhere. Usually when somebody says, I don't know, we don't have the resources, and I'm like, Tony Stark built one in a cave. And then you give the pause until they start their sentence again. With a box of scrap.
Unfortunately, not much of that charisma was present in this movie. You got a little bit of it, but
I know.
it was not fully formed yet.
Well, I mean, Lear's a pretty boring character anyway, so...
Yeah, it was actually, it's a little bit below him. I don't know when he actually recorded, but I mean, like, this came out same year as Tron, so...
Yeah, maybe it was...
Yeah.
He was having trouble expressing it vocally only, and he needed some more physical presence in it to...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he's only gotten better as he's gotten older, so...
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so that's Jeff Bridges. Mia Farrow has been in... Oh, what has Mia Farrow been? She's one of these actresses where I recognize the name and I know that she's been acting for as long as ever. But the only thing I can actually truly remember her having been in, and this is going back to like high school, was in the 1974 The Great Gatsby film. She played Daisy.
Okay then.
Just take my word on that. It was one of those deals where you have to watch the movie after you've read the book and yeah, it was Mia Farrow was in it. So I don't know if there's anything else that she's been in that would. Oh, she was in she was in Supergirl, the 84 Supergirl with Helen Slater.
Okay.
She played Supergirl's mom, I believe, Alora Zorel.
Everyone is super familiar with that movie, I'm sure.
People are familiar with Alora Zorel now that there's a TV series, and do you know that that character just got recast on the TV series? And Smallville's Erica Durance is going to be taking over the role.
I've tried watching Supergirl, and a few episodes in, like, I know you really like it, but a few episodes in, I got to a point where I'm like, I can't take any more of this episode right now. Maybe I'll get back to it and give it another shot later.
Yeah. No, I fully admit, I love this show, and so I forgive a lot of its flaws.
Well, it sounds like your feelings on Supergirl are a pretty close mirror to 60s on The Last Unicorn.
Yeah. Oh, all right. That was Mia Farrow, somehow by way of Supergirl. So Molly Grew was a really weird character that, like, I don't really know what her deal was. Was she like 60? Can you explain Molly Grew to me, because I can't explain Molly Grew to save my life.
Explain her in what way? I mean,
what was the explain her?
Character motivation or plot relevance?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I get that. I mean, in the movie, it doesn't do a great job, I guess, of her motivation. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I kind of took it as, I mean, she's poor as dirt. Like, she doesn't even have shoes on. And she's living with these terrible bandit guys. And she's the only woman there, so that has to be pretty awful.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, this weird magician shows up and, with a unicorn. And she's like, well, that's pretty cool. I'll go with him. Yeah. There you go. Motivation.
I just she just seemed like she just happened to be there with the bandits, and the unicorn shows up, and she just kind of flips out about the whole thing, and then decides, well, I'm coming with you because they're all chasing pretend Robin Hood.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I don't know. I'd probably want to go hang out with the unicorn instead of hanging out with all the bandits, I guess.
I imagine.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. They don't really explain it that well. It made sense to me, because if I was her, that's what I would do. I'd be like, hell yeah, unicorn.
It seemed like she was a little bit shoehorned in. I don't know if the book did you read the book, by the way? I didn't ask anybody. Did you read the book, 60?
I have read the book.
So how close is the book to the movie?
Well, it's been a long time since I've read the book. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I mean, it's not that different. I mean, obviously there's stuff that's like left out of the movie, but it's all, I mean, all of the major stuff is pretty similar.
All right, so
even a lot of the lines are taken straight from the book.
Okay.
Well, because the author of the book wrote the screenplay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a very long book either. So
okay, I was wondering.
I think Molly Grew was a little bit more fleshed out in the book, but
yeah, it was. She was so abruptly joining the crew. It felt like the opening hour of an adventure RPG game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's a person I met. I want to join you. Yes, no. No, but you must. All right, fine, yes. Thank you for letting me join you. Right,
My name is...
Yeah. What is your name? Nice to meet you, Buttsmith. I sometimes name my characters Buttsmith. What do you want from me? Anyway, Yeah, she just, I mean, the character, for as abruptly as she was added and as abrasive as she was when she was initially introduced, she did end up being probably one of the more endearing characters in this, because I had a hard time endearing myself to the unicorn, or Amalthea, who they're listed as different characters. But wait, how'd they say it? Amalthea? Amalthea? I don't know. But yeah, I liked her better. I liked Molly Grew better than the unicorn or Amalthea.
Yeah, that's one of the strange things about it is there's just sort of a plot device-y aspect of it where everyone sort of gets fixated and entranced by a unicorn, but she is pretty much presented as so aloof that to an audience perspective, it can be just like, why?
Yeah.
Just why?
Like, you see it, and I mean, people don't even know she's a unicorn, so, you know, she can just kind of do her own thing. But you would think after having spoken to a unicorn, somebody would walk away going like, wow, unicorns are so pretentious. Anyway, all right, so that's where are we down the list here? Christopher Lee is King Haggard. So Christopher Lee, we've talked about him a little bit already. He was in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and that's where people will recognize him from who maybe aren't familiar with his more heavy metal-ish roles, and
like his metal album.
His metal album, yeah. Which now granted, I don't listen to a lot of metal music more these days. I do know all the words to Let It Go, but I have listened, because when I heard Christopher Lee had a metal album, I thought, well, all right, obviously I need to make time in my life to listen to this, and it's really good. That's what drives me nuts, is you have this, you know, this old World War II veteran who in his, wow, how old was he when he made that album? In his late 80s, right?
I think so.
Makes a metal album.
If not his 90s.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It is amazing.
I mean, Christopher Lee is a guy who's just he is the real life 007. If you look at his life, like he's like fencing, secret agent stuff. It's like movie star, singer, like either 007 or Buckaroo Banzai. Pick one.
One of the two. Yes, veteran, secret agent, all these huge movie roles. Lives to the ripe old age of 93. The late Christopher Lee, if I could accomplish about a quarter in my life of what he managed to do, I'd consider that to be pretty well accomplished.
That's a quartering of what he did is more than anyone should reasonably expect, if you ask me.
It's insane. Like, when you look at his filmography, and that's like just the stuff before he came to Hollywood. That's the stuff that full careers are made of, and that's what he did before he decided to get serious about it. But he's insanely talented person, and it's a shame that when he was playing Count Dooku, they couldn't give him some better material, because when you look at him as Saruman and then look at him as Count Dooku and see just the difference between what you give him, you know, he can't. He's not himself a conjurer. He cannot create good when you have him read this line. I'm like, really?
To be fair, he probably had the second or third best acting presentation in those movies behind, I can't remember his name, playing Palpatine, who was so obviously chewing the scenery and having fun, and maybe Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I will say, as many people are down on those movies, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan was actually really, really charming.
Yeah.
Even when his dialogue was flat, he still managed to be charming while delivering it, and that's something that's difficult for an actor to do. You know, when you I want you to sound pretentious and angry about something that the audience didn't get to see. Oh, super. All right. I will somehow do that and still have fun. So interestingly enough, as I was just scrolling through Christopher Lee's IMDb, he was in Captain America 2. Now, that would have been the 1979 Captain America 2.
Oh, right. Wait, I know this one. He played, was it Carlos?
Miguel. Yes.
I know that because that was the sequel with Reb Brown playing Captain America with his transparent shield.
Yeah, the giant helmet and the riding around his motorcycle.
Helmet.
Yeah.
Which Captain America was it where he was stealing cars?
That was the
first one or the
other
second one?
series.
That was the other series. That was the one in the 80s. That was the one where he kept stealing cars because he was pretending he had to throw up.
Because that's
Yeah.
my favorite Captain America.
Does that twice. Twice in that movie. Oh.
It seems like they referenced that in what was it, Winter Soldier?
Yeah, because he steals the car.
Yeah. No, he borrowed it.
Yeah.
Oh, now Captain America being one of my favorite comic book heroes, I will take the good and the bad. But yeah, it's just funny that he was in that movie. He was also in the Avengers, and by the Avengers I mean the 1960s TV series.
God, stop that! You're like sending my memory into overdrive. It's like, what? How did I miss it? Damn it!
Sorry. But it's not very often I have somebody who's able to be in all of these different roles that I can do that setup, so I have to take advantage of it. Now I'm desperately searching while I talk now to see if there's another one I can do, but no, I can't. I think that, well, he was in The Mummy.
Yeah, well, he was in a lot of Hammer films, so that one's not a surprise.
Yeah, he was all the monster films. So let's see, what did he play? He was The Mummy, he was Dracula. Any of the other ones he was in?
He got so sick of those at one point. He insisted that he not have any speaking lines because he didn't want to actually work for it.
And again, this was all before he came to Hollywood too. Like that's pretty accomplished. All right, we could do an entire podcast on Christopher Lee, so we need to move on.
Yeah,
but we'll come back to Christopher Lee later if we need some more stuff to talk about.
An entire podcast series on Christopher Lee.
You could. We could just be called Christopher Lee Talk. Just every week, you just take another week of his life and you talk about all the stuff he did, and you're still like have a 3-hour podcast. Like, so this is when he saved Mars. I don't remember that. Well, just believe me, it happened. I'm trying if there's anyone else. Captain Cully was Keenan Wynn, who was Dr. Strangelove. Oh. Point blank. All right, you know what? We're not gonna. I didn't even like that part. The cat. I guess that was something. Was
Pirate Cat.
Don Messick played the cat. I don't remember what Don Messick was from.
Apparently, the cat became a pirate because when they were recording the lines, he was just messing around with a bunch of different accents, and everyone just was so amused by the pirate read that they kept it in. And then animated the cat as a pirate.
Is that right? That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, so... well, I was at the cat. Sorry, I was looking ahead to the skull. We're going to talk about the skull in a second.
Oh, you got to talk about the skull.
See, Don Messick, he played Papa Smurf.
Who was he in the...
That was the cat. The cat and Papa Smurf. And Azrael.
Huh.
Voiced Scooby-Doo.
Really? These are all roles that I think could have been played by Frank Welker.
They probably were played by Frank Welker at certain points of time.
Just about any voice role has probably been played by Frank Welker at some point in time.
All right, so moving on, the skull, the last person from the cast that I actually want to talk about before we talk about whatever else we're going to talk about, is Renee. Renee Auberjonois.
Yeah.
What's he been in? Madam Secretary lately. He did a voice in Avengers Assemble, the TV show.
Was Odo?
Was he Odo?
Yeah.
Odo on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, man, I didn't watch Deep Space Nine.
Here's one that I'm really surprised you haven't mentioned, and I think in a previous Hero Talk you talked about Renee Auberjonois, didn't mention it. He was the Scarecrow on the animated series, Batman the Animated Series.
He was. That's right. Oh, I completely forgot about that. He was. He totally was.
Mm-hmm.
He was in MASH, the movie, not the TV show.
Yeah.
He played.
He was in Soap and I think he was also in Benson.
Was he in Soap and Benson? Yeah.
If not both, then at least Benson.
Yeah, he's Manfred in Archer.
Oh yeah.
So Archer's a funny show. He was on NCIS one time, but everyone's been on NCIS one time.
Everyone's been at least one procedural of some sort.
He also has voiced Pepe Le Pew a couple of times.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, he was Blockbuster in Young Justice.
I'm trying to remember that one now.
Yeah, I think he was only in like the first episode or the pilot. But yeah, so he was Blockbuster. Let's see, he did a bunch of voices in Avatar: The Last Airbender. The Mechanist, I know, he was the Mechanist, he's listed there, and the Ganjin leader. Wow, he's done a ton of stuff for being the Skull. This is
Yeah. He was also he had a spot on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He was Dee's old theater teacher.
Drama teacher.
Yeah, or drama teacher.
Yeah.
He did a whole bunch of different voices in the old Justice League TV series, the cartoon. He would Kanjar Ro. He was one of the Guardians. General Steppenwolf.
the Super Friends one, yeah.
Yeah, and Desaad.
Oh no, wait, not the Super Friend. Wait,
No.
is it the old one?
No, the 2001 to 2003 Justice League.
Okay.
With Kevin
I
Conroy.
remember him being Kanjar Row now that you mention it.
Yeah. Wow, he has done a ton of stuff. I'm just now in awe of this guy's IMDb. Like, for somebody who I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess he's a fancy actor. I'm like, wow, look at all these things he's done that I've watched and I enjoyed. What a wonderful career he's had. He was the voice of Chef Louis from The Little Mermaid.
Well, there you go. You got 2 Disney connections.
Yeah. Dr. Burton in Batman Forever. Wow. Look at him. This guy acts. All right. Okay. Wow. I'm just kind of blown away right now. I don't know what other little gems I'm going to find in here. Do you know he was in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country?
Yeah, he was Colonel West.
He certainly was. He also was Sensei in Darkwing Duck, in the episode The Secret Origins of Darkwing Duck.
Was that the one where they were training in the belly bounce?
I think so. It has been a long time for me to remember Darkwing Duck. I cannot believe. Holy cow. He was on a Doogie Howser MD. Guy got around. Also did voices for the Smurfs. Holy cow. Apparently he was on the 1980s Superman cartoon where he voiced General
Zod. Yeah, that's why I was
Zod.
asking about if it was the old one or the new one.
Yeah, because he was General Zod in that.
Wow. I don't think of his voice and associate that with anything that I would associate with Zod.
It's very hard for me to associate anything other than Terrence Stamp with General Zod, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I know when Michael Shannon did it and he did his thing, and I get that, but it's Terrence Stamp for me. And now I think General Zod's going to show up on Supergirl next season.
Well, with Zod, now you have the choice between kneel before Zod and I will find him!
Yeah. If I had my druthers, it'd be Neil before Zod. I was a little bit upset that he didn't actually say those lines as Michael Shannon in the movie. I mean, the general principle was there, but it's just, I just would have liked to have heard it. It's what I associate with General Zod and Terrence Stamp. Well, he was in the old Wonder Woman TV series?
This just keeps going.
Wow, I cannot believe how much stuff he's been in. See, now I'm going back to like old stuff like The Bionic Woman and Rhoda. Remember Rhoda?
I remember Rhoda.
Spin-off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
I used to watch that on Nick at Night.
I don't think I ever watched Rhoda. I definitely watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
I know I watched Mary Tyler Moore, and I'm fairly certain I watched Rhoda.
Yeah, all right. I think that's enough of this. All right, Renee Aubergenois.
This episode should be subtitled Judge Greg Discovers Renee Aubergenois.
I'm just... When we're done recording, no joke, I'm going back and I'm rereading the rest of that IMDb, because holy cow, I was just skimming. That was just going to be like, oh, I remember that the skull was a part. Let's read him. Holy cow.
Well, I wasn't going to let you get around with that one because of the whole Scarecrow bit, if nothing else.
But, yeah, I mean, wow, this guy's... Holy cow. All right, there was a movie we were talking about at one point in here. All right, we're done with the cast. I don't want to go on and talk about Nellie Bellflower, who played the tree, who was in Flight of the Dragons and The Return of the King, the other animated movie from Rankin and Bass. We're not going to talk about her.
I was about to ask, was that Return of the King the Peter Jackson one?
No, Return of the King, the other one by the same people. She was in that one. In fact, she played Éowyn.
Yeah, I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
Well, here we are. What do you want? I just happened to discover somebody else who did something noteworthy in one of these films, and now we're done. I'm closing the cast page. Cast page is closed. There. I don't have notes on the cast anymore. So, the general... a couple of yahoos go, like, running through the forest and then figure out that a unicorn must live there because, what was it? Because everything was so green and it was lush, or I forget the...
It was always spring there, no matter what.
Yeah. So then they're all like, well, it's the last one. All right, see ya, unicorn. Bye, last unicorn. And they leave. And at this point, the unicorn thinks like, I'm the last one? Oh my goodness, I better find all my friends. I'm like, you're going to believe these two? These are the equivalent of like drunken rednecks right here of your time. Just rolling in and saying like, hey, it's always springtime. It's a unicorn. It's the last unicorn, I say as an expert non-magical person. And I leave. And the unicorn takes it completely at face value, which is fantastical enough, but then it turns out it was accurate. Like, these two guys actually had some sort of, like, secret knowledge of I mean, there are people who couldn't recognize unicorns. I mean, obviously these guys had no magical powers. They couldn't have possibly seen a unicorn, but man, they knew all about unicorns and that there was only one left. These guys were in the know. I felt like there's some other story somewhere about their adventures.
I kind of feel like you get like from like Molly Grew, where she was saying that, you know, when she was mad at the unicorn for not coming to her when she was young. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of feel like in this world, unicorns and unicorn mythology is well known, is what that makes me feel like. So I think maybe they know the signs of a unicorn, and like you just don't have any other areas that would have evidence that there's a unicorn around or something. Is all I can come up with for that.
I mean, obviously, people believe there are unicorns because when they went to the freak show there, they were able to. I can't say they were able to see the unicorn, but they at least when the fake unicorn horn was projected on the real unicorn by Mommy Fortuna, they understood they were seeing a unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be something along the lines of everyone has this cultural awareness of unicorns, but no one's seen or heard of one for, let's say, 40 years. It's a little bit like, can you remember what it was like before the internet? And you have this weird sort of fuzzy, like, you know it was a thing, but you can't quite picture it.
Well, I had to actually memorize phone numbers. That was a thing. I knew how to use a phone book before the internet. I used to have to call theaters and, like, use the punch, like, the Mr. Movie phone buttons to see when movies were going to play. Don't have to do that anymore. Now I buy the ticket on my phone and, in fact, present my phone to the dude at the door and say, here, the internet says you must let me in.
I gave my money to the internet. The internet says let me in.
Yeah. Which is really, do they get a kick of that? How does that work? Like, does Fandango just, like, kind of get their cut and then the theater gets, like, the regular price of admission or...
Probably. I don't know.
I mean, I love that system because my theater here has, they upgraded to luxury seating with assigned seats.
Oh, those are great.
So, yeah. So when I buy a ticket to a movie, I buy it a week ahead of time, and I've already picked out my seat. If I show up 2 minutes before it starts, I know exactly where I'm going to sit.
Is that one of the ones that has the leather recliners? Because those are the best.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with the recliners and the little tray table that, like, swivels out in front of you. Yeah, those are nice. That is where I have been watching movies for the last couple of years.
Like, theaters are becoming amazing.
They got to do something to compete with your house.
You have to now. I mean, it's not like you have you don't have the benefit of high definition anymore because people got 4K TVs in their houses now, and you don't have the benefit of 3D anymore because people can have 3D in their house. Why? I don't know. But they know they do. People have the surround sound in their houses now. I mean, the home theater experience is getting pretty close to what the theater can do. So you have to find some way to make it more enjoyable, other than I just want to see the movie sooner. And so the way they're getting around it is, well, what if your feet didn't stick to the floor and the seat wasn't really flimsy? And what if we just weren't rat holes? That's what they're basically saying.
They'll be able to compete much better as soon as they start letting me come in with no pants.
I am down with the no pants theater. Yeah. Quite frankly, it saved me from getting kicked out of a lot of movies. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hell, just speaking of competing with movie theaters, just now watching The Last Unicorn on my modern TV, it actually looks better than it did the first time I saw the movie on a different high definition TV. But I was actually surprised with how well the animation looked on this TV, and I'm pretty convinced that it looks better on a modern TV than it would have in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but
yeah. So, anyways, that's speaking of which, the Last Unicorn, this movie, but. Yeah, the theaters have to do something. And, like, some of them have, like, waiting staff that come through and, like, take your order now.
Yeah. Some of them serve alcohol and bring it to you. They'll deliver the alcohol to you in your seat.
I see that ending badly.
Yeah.
That's just where I see that going. It's like, oh, great. It's hard enough to get people not to talk during the movie when they're sober. I'm sorry, nominally sober. But now we're just going to serve them. However, on the other hand of that, like, there are a couple of times it'd be nice if I could order a drink while I was watching a movie. But Anyway,
You know, like I'm pretty sure I don't drink, but when I saw Alien Covenant,
Oh my god. I would have ordered cyanide.
well, that seems a
could
little
have.
extreme. I would have just maybe gone the tequila route. You drink enough tequila, it'll have the same effect. So anyway, just a couple of notes from the movie as we go through. I need to ask, did either of you actually like the butterfly?
I'm going to say definitively that no one in the world who has ever seen that movie enjoyed the butterfly.
except for possibly the author, because that was apparently supposed to be a bit of him in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean-
he's a dingus.
Well, there you have it. I don't know what else to say. That's it was. It's one of every now and then when you have somebody who's so creative and they have, you know, they're so well renowned. They always there has to be something about them that is just terrible that that just brings you down or reminds you that person can actually make terrible things. You know, Joss Whedon has Alien Resurrection, and the author of The Last Unicorn has The Butterfly.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What was their end game when they got to Haggard's castle? When they knew they wanted to free the unicorns, and then they convinced Haggard to let them stay there. What was the plan at that point?
I don't think they had a plan. Like, you had the unicorn who just has this idea of, well, I got to find the other unicorns, and I need to save them somehow, but gives no thought as to how, or even what to do when the Red Bull comes.
Right.
Like, she didn't put any thought into that. She's like, well, I'm just going to walk over to here where I know that this thing exists and I know that it will come for me, but I'm not going to have a plan for when it does. And then you have Schmendrick, who's a moron, and he doesn't know anything, and Molly Grew, who's just angry and also doesn't know anything. And nobody thought to come up with an idea of how they're going to get the unicorns back, or what to do about the Red Bull, or what are they even going to say to Haggard. They didn't even come up with a name for the unicorn beforehand when they got to the gate, because, like, you know they're going to be asked. So, like, nobody thought any of this through.
Yeah. This is my cousin, Unicorn.
That's what I was thinking, is that Schmendrick was actually pretty good at coming up with a mouthia on his feet.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a good point though. It's you turned her into a human and like, all right, we'll just pretend that she's just a regular human. But
What are you doing with this woman who's clearly naked under that cloak?
She's an illusion. I really now I understand when the unicorn doesn't have a plan because it's a horse. But Schmendrick and Molly Grew probably, I mean, maybe Molly Grew, I'll let her go because she was a bit in awe of the unicorn. Schmendrick should have at least thought to himself, hey, at some point we're going to encounter the Red Bull, and it gives you wings. And
Yes.
sorry, I needed to get that in at least one place because every time they said it, it was in my head.
Oh,
Red
yeah.
Bull, it brings you wings. But they're going to encounter the Red Bull.
It does make the unicorns take flight. So
Yes. I just don't. They didn't have any plan for when the Red Bull shows up, and quite frankly, I think Schmendrick was when he had the idea to conjure magic in order to change her into something that the Red Bull wouldn't care about. I thought that's pretty good. Probably should have come up with that ahead of time instead of letting it be something that you just Hail Mary at the last minute and hopefully it works.
You know,
Well, that's
I'm
one of the
actually,
things-
I'm fairly certain that if the Red Bull hadn't come, they would have just walked up to the gates with the unicorn.
Yeah. Like, hello, I'm here with this horse.
Horse.
We would like to come inside your castle, me and my horse friend, and ask you questions about unicorns.
well, once they got inside, it seems that their ad-libbed plan was that Schmendrick was just going to try to scour the castle to find where the unicorns were hidden.
Yeah. And then at one point, the cat told them how to find the entrance to the Red Bull's lair, which was then guarded by the skull, now this was mean. When they gave the skull the empty wine bottle and I understand that the skull doesn't know the difference because it has no eyes and it can't taste, but there's a little something called integrity. It asked for wine. Go get him some wine. I mean, come on. What do you care? It seems like Molly has access to the entire, the entire kitchen.
They did say she said either her
There
or
was no
Schmendrick. One of
wine
them said
there.
they looked everywhere and couldn't find any wine.
Oh, did they say okay?
Yeah, they did say that.
Did they have grape juice? Or they had potatoes, which means there's vodka.
There's some vodka. Yeah.
There's vodka.
Haggard does seem more like a vodka guy than a
He
wine
does.
guy.
If I had to ping him for it, I'd say he was a vodka drinker. I just thought that was mean, but that really. Then what? Let's see. What was it? You had to like walk through a clock to get to the Red Bull's lair.
Yeah, which is like the worst security system ever. It's just like an illusory wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the first time somebody goes like, "Huh, that's a little off. Let me just advance it 1 minute." You're gonna find yourself in the Red Bull's lair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of people wandering around because the entire court is 4 men-at-arms that we never see, unless the 4 men-at-arms were Haggard, Lear, the cat.
No, the four men-at-arms were their combined arms.
I mean, I don't know if in the book it was actually was it actually just the 4 men-at-arms, or did they really just in there think, do you really want to animate all these people? No. All right, so let's just say there's only 4 of them. There you go.
Yeah, and we'll never show them.
Yeah, we won't show them, but there's 4 of them. They're in here somewhere. You don't worry about it. Don't worry
big
about
castle, you know.
Yeah.
I gotta give a quick point out that when Schmendrick changed the unicorn into the lady, that he said he was going to change her form, and then he does.
And then Molly gets pissed.
Yeah, Molly says, "Do something." Well, I can do this. Do something. He does it. Why did you do that, you idiot?
Yeah, he did get a lot of flack for doing that, even though, quite frankly, nothing else would have
Probably the
worked.
only thing that would have worked.
Yeah. What else did you want him to do? Change the Red Bull into something? I wonder if he could have. That would have been better.
That would have been a better idea, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to change the Red Bull into some dude.
Just an angry dude.
Yeah, and then be like, hey, dude, stop. That's like your opinion, man. But yeah, I just when I got so lost after they got to the castle. It's like I'm wondering like what's advancing the story, and my mind was still blown by that cutting potatoes thing, and I was just really kind of lost as to what was advancing the plot. And the next thing I know, they're being chased by the Red Bull, and I remember thinking I have literally no idea how this happened.
Well, I don't even understand like what Molly Gru's situation was there, because I know like Schmendrick was trying to keep Haggard occupied,
right.
You know, so they could look for the Red Bull's lair, I guess, with no plan of what to do. Again, no plan of what to do when they found it.
I think the hope was that maybe it still didn't care that they were just these measly humans.
Yeah, but then like the unicorn is losing her sense of herself, right? Like she's in the human body and she keeps forgetting like what she is or why she's there. And instead of, you know, helping her, Molly Gru just ignores that and encourages Lear to court her for some reason. Why? I don't know. I guess because reasons.
I think it wasn't so much she wanted Lear to court her. She just wanted Lear to stop being such a whiner.
Yeah, he was a whiner.
Like, just stop whining and learn to cut potatoes. It's not hard.
I also like, he's like, this is the only woman I've ever seen in my entire life. Therefore, I'm in love with her. Why doesn't she like me? I keep murdering things for her, and it's not working. What do I do?
Yeah, didn't he at one point go out and just kill a dragon?
He just kills a dragon just cause.
Right. Yeah.
And he brings the head to her, and she just kind of looks at him, and then turns away. Doesn't say anything.
It reminds me of like when the dog goes out and like kills a squirrel and brings it back. Yeah. It's like, I brought a gift for the family. It's a squirrel head. Oh, thank you for this. That's what I wanted.
Severed bloody head.
Yeah, but that was his plan. It was the exact same plan.
That's what women love. Women. That's how you get women. Go to the bar.
Yeah.
Severed
well,
animal
men are
head.
dogs.
Yeah. Well, you know what? To be fair to him, well, he's only ever met that one woman. There are certain women who would be totally impressed and be totally on board with that if he like brought like I killed a dragon for you. They'd be like, wow. I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't know his audience, I think, is what we're really trying to say.
Yeah.
I'll write her a terrible poem. That'll work.
Oh God. Yeah, Jeff Bridges can't sing here.
Oh,
I'm sorry, but that singing was pretty bad.
It must have been intentionally bad. I want to say I've heard Jeff Bridges sing, and he's not that bad.
But he's probably had some coaching between then and Crazy Heart.
Maybe. Was he actually doing the singing in Crazy Heart? I can't remember.
I don't know, but I'm just guessing.
I sometimes assume, but then I do remember hearing stories about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and George Clooney wanted to sing in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and they got maybe one take, and they said, you know what, George? No. No. We're going to go ahead and bring in somebody else. Why don't you take a breather? But to his credit, I also heard George Clooney heard the playback and said, yep, you're right. I can't do this.
It's a little bit like Nightmare Before Christmas when it's really jarring when I recognize Danny Elfman is doing the singing bits for Jack Skellington.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a good job with that, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, Danny Elfman's a singer.
No, Danny Elfman is a very, very talented musician. And anyway, so at the end of The Last Unicorn, I kind of got this Wizard of Oz moment where it was you had the power in you all along when the unicorn turns to the Red Bull and just decides, now I'm going to drive you back. Well, that's a nifty little trick you could have pulled out about 2/3 of a movie ago.
Yeah,
I just now realized that I'm a powerful magical creature and could do something about this. Maybe I could try fighting back.
As it turns out, I have magic unicorn powers.
Well, it's funny because earlier in the movie, she fends off the harpy in the same way.
Right.
But, doesn't think to do that to the bull for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why when I saw the bit with the harpy, I thought that it was a weirdly animated dodge.
Yeah, it was. I watched it more than once to try to because I got a little lost in what happened. That just struck me as very odd and then very bittersweet because what happens to Prince Lear after that? Because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who's emotionally mature enough to move on after his girlfriend becomes a unicorn.
Also, he died.
Right.
And then was brought back to life, and he seemed like, okay,
Wait a minute, I was dead.
Yeah.
This is one of those points where I think that there's a lot of interesting elements that aren't quite put together in a good way, narratively speaking, because this is where the whole, she was a human and started to forget that she was a unicorn, and after some other stuff in that terrible duet, she and Lear start falling for each other. And then she becomes a unicorn again and then sees Lear die, someone whom she still has or remembers having had feelings for, and that got her to actually get past what appears to be a unicorn's tendency to be pacifistic to a fault and say, there's something to do here.
Yeah. I mean, whatever gets you there, I guess. But it just seemed like something that it's not often that you were carrying Chekhov's gun the entire movie. Like, check it out. I had a gun this whole time. It was very Wizard of Oz for me. Like, you had the power to beat the Red Bull this whole time. Oh, well, that would have been helpful there, unicorn. Thanks.
Maybe the thousands of the unicorns in the ocean, they could have tried to overwhelm him at some point.
Right. That really struck me.
It sucks being in this water. Should we do anything about it? Nah.
Yeah, but the bull's up there, and he's just gonna get all aggressive, and I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Unicorns are lazy. Yeah. I'm surprised this one even just bothered walking across the land to try to find their friend. I'm the last one? Huh, how about that? Oh well, I got stuff to do. I'm traipsing around my woods that I care so much about. I wonder what her woods were like when she got back. Did those hunters come back and clean house?
Just everything was dead.
Yeah, just everything. Guys were like, we got the unicorn to leave, man. It was open season.
Apparently, there were even dodos in the unicorn's wood.
Were there? Did they show any?
Yeah, when in the group of animals that were gathered to say goodbye, she was leaving.
Well, those dodos are definitely dead when she gets back.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're gone. Yeah. In fact, I bet they just burned the forest to the ground just to.
And salted the earth just to prove a point. Man versus nature, the path to victory.
That's right. We're just going to teach you a lesson in complacency. Well, that took a dark ending. So with that, I don't think I've...
You want more darkness. Here's a reference, is the animation of the unicorns coming out make me think of Watership Down sequence when the rabbits are getting poisoned and whatnot.
That is
dark. Trapped on the ground.
Why are you bringing that into this? What are you trying to do? All right. No, we're moving on. Moving on. Now is the time on Hero Talk where we talk about what our favorite parts of the movie were. And Nick, I'm going with you. You're first. What was your favorite part?
I'm going to have to say my favorite part, like if you can't just say the animation in general, I would say my favorite part is going to be King Haggard's speech talking about remembering seeing a unicorn for the first time. And it informs that he is someone who is suffering from severe depression, like nothing makes him happy, and the experience of actually feeling happy made him feel like he was going to die. So it's just a character building moment, and it has some subtlety to it, some depth to it, and it was delivered by Christopher Lee.
It's hard to get past Christopher Lee, but and for reference, you could have made it the animation. That's fine. There's no actual rules here. We just kind of wing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If the animation would probably have been my runner-up.
All right, both of those are fine points. 60. What was your favorite part of The Last Unicorn?
Well, I'd have to say, especially bringing it back to my childhood, growing up on this movie, was that, like most of the cartoons when I was a kid, like if you were going to watch cartoons, especially as a girl, like all you had was like Disney princesses, you know? And I was never really into the Disney princesses and everything, but then this movie came along and like, it was like, there are women characters in the movie that have agency and, you know, are fleshed out a bit and are flawed, but also have, you know, strength in them. And I really enjoyed that. It meant a lot to me as a kid growing up, like, to see this movie, and there were women portrayed there that were a lot different than the other cartoons that I had watched, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's what I appreciate that a lot about this movie.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Let's see. Now is my favorite part. I guess I have to go with the only part that stuck with me for the last 30 plus years is the potato cutting scene. It's just good advice. When you cut away from your hand, not towards it. So that is my favorite part. My favorite part is the potato cutting scene. Had to be something. All right, now we're going to go ahead and give this movie a score, and as I am wont to do at the point where we score movies, I want to remind the listening audience that review scores are dumb, and they don't matter. And you need to just let it go. Let it go. The cold never bothered me anyway. All right, so Nick, what would you score The Last Unicorn?
I would give The Last Unicorn the last of the Red Hot Swamis.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That, since we hadn't explained it, I will explain the joke.
I was just going to let him.
Since we hadn't mentioned it, was the title that Schmendrick introduced himself by at one point.
I was going to let people Google it, honestly. All right, 60. What would you score The Last Unicorn?
I give it 4 out of 5 pacifist potatoes.
4 out of 5 pacifist potatoes. I would give The Last Unicorn The Last Unicorn.
Okay.
I'm just going to go meta. Yeah. There you go. Well, that was The Last Unicorn. Now we have time for final thoughts, if we have any. I don't have any, so I'm just going to go ahead and pass. Nick, any final thoughts?
Well, I've been working on, I mentioned it in Behind the Line Radio recently. There is a project that I've been working on for Enthusiacs YouTube channel that should be going up in a couple of weeks. I've been working pretty hard on it, and I hope it is at least mildly amusing. It will involve, in an unexpected way, many of the other people from Enthusiacs. So yep. I won't quite tip on exactly what it is, but yeah.
All right, and whenever that goes up, I will add the link to that into the show notes for this episode on Enthusiacs.com. And 60, do you have any final thoughts?
I do not.
That's fair. So that was The Last Unicorn, and I'm glad that one's done, and I don't even want to know what the next one we're going to do is, because that was The Last Unicorn. But in the meantime, I just want to thank Nick and 60. Thanks for coming back on Hero Talk.
Anytime.
Yep.
There you go. You never sound excited at this part, 60. You're like, whatever. Anyway, all right. So Nick, 60, thank you very much. If you want to hear any more content from Enthusiacs.com, just check out Enthusiacs.com, where you'll find other articles, reviews, interviews, and my sister podcast, Behind the Line Radio, hosted by Nick, and Baron Fang, also the host of the Point Streak podcast. For more of our videos, you can check out YouTube. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Enthusiacs. And until next time, this is Judge Greg saying, there are no happy endings, because nothing ends. All right. One of these days, 60, you should actually see how this goes when I'm being professional.